I have watched people do something for years that makes them feel normal in the moment and broke at the end of the month. They do not buy a yacht. They do not buy a mansion. They do not light money on fire in some dramatic way. They just live the way everybody around them lives. They buy groceries, pick up a few meals, replace a phone that still works well enough, upgrade a car because the new one smells better, book a vacation because everybody else seems to be doing it, and subscribe to one more thing because it is only $10 or $15. Then they look at their bank account after what felt like an ordinary month and wonder where all the money went. I will tell you where it went. It went into things that no longer deserve what they cost. That is the part people miss. A lot of purchases that used to be reasonable are no longer reasonable. The price moved, the quality did not. The value disappeared, but the habit stayed. And if you keep the habit after the value is gone, you will slowly bleed wealth without ever feeling like you made one huge mistake. You will just make 50 small ones. That is how most people stay poor while looking perfectly normal. Start with, there was a time when fast food had a real purpose. It was cheap, fast, predictable, and good enough. You knew it was not fine dining, but that was not the point. The point was that you could get in, get fed, and get out without doing real damage to your budget. That bargain is gone. Now people are handing over $12, $15, sometimes $20 for food that still comes in a paper bag, still leaves them feeling mediocre, and still does not qualify as quality in any serious sense. They are paying restaurant money for convenience food and pretending that is still a value play. It is not when the price rises and the quality does not. The investment case is broken. That is true in stocks. That is true in businesses. That is true in lunch. And once a person gets used to saying, well, it is only $15, they stop noticing how often they say it. That is where the damage comes from. Not one burger, not one stop at the drive. Through the repetition, then people do something even more expensive. They move from fast food to regular restaurants and tell themselves, at least this is a real experience. Sometimes it is, most of the time, it is just an expensive habit with better lighting. 2, maybe drinks, maybe an appetizer because they are already there. And by the time the check lands, dinner costs $60, $70, $80, $100. One meal gone, no asset, no cash flow, no compounding, no resale value, nothing left but a memory that usually was not even extraordinary. I am not against enjoying a meal out. I am against lying about the math. If you are doing that multiple times a week while telling yourself you cannot seem to save, the answer is not mysterious. You are eating your future in small, socially approved bites. And because it is $20 here and $30 there, people do not experience it as one giant leak. They experience it as life. That is exactly why it is dangerous. Now, let me turn to something that destroys more wealth than most people are willing to admit. Brand new cars, I have said for a very long time that if you want to look rich, buy a new car. If you want to become rich, think very carefully before you do it. The moment a new car leaves the lot, value evaporates. You have not improved the machine by driving it home. You have only changed its category from new to used, and the market punishes you for that change immediately. Then the depreciation keeps going. Meanwhile, a lot of people finance the car, which means they are paying interest on an asset that is losing value every single month. That is a double insult. You are paying for the privilege of owning something that is becoming worth less while you pay. I cannot call that rational capital allocation for an ordinary person. A 3-year, old or 4-year, old used vehicle that is reliable will usually get you to the same office, the same grocery store, the same airport, and the same family dinner for far less money. Somebody else absorbed the dumbest part of the financial hit. You come in after the punishment is already done. That is how a rational buyer behaves. But a lot of people do not buy transportation. They buy image. They buy the feeling of having the newest thing. They buy the illusion that success is something you park in the driveway. And then they spend the next 5 years sending money every month to prove to strangers that they are doing well, while the payment itself is the proof that they are. That same pattern shows up in clothing. I am not saying cheap is always smart and expensive is always foolish. Some things are worth paying for. Good boots, a durable coat, clothing that is actually made well and lasts. I understand quality. And branding only has power over people who confuse recognition with substance. A plain shirt that does its job for $10 and a shirt with a luxury label that costs $200 are often serving the same function. The gap is not fabric. The gap is vanity. And vanity is one of the most expensive recurring costs in personal finance because it disguises itself as taste. People tell themselves they are investing in style. Usually they are financing insecurity. The cruel joke is that the audience they imagine rarely cares. Most people are too busy thinking about themselves to care what logo is on somebody else's shirt. So what are you really buying permission to feel important for an afternoon? That is a bad deal. The same bad deal keeps showing up in vacations. I understand the emotional appeal. Travel can be wonderful. Seeing new places can expand you. Breaking routine can be healthy. I am not denying any of that. But that does not mean every expensive trip is a wise use of money. A lot of people today are not taking vacations because the numbers make sense. They are taking them because social pressure made staying home feel like failure. They see other people posting beaches, cocktails, mountain views, and hotel balconies, and they decide they need their own version of the same proof. So they book flights that cost too much, rooms that cost too much, meals that cost too much, and then they come back with credit card debt and photographs. One of those compounds, it is not the photographs. If a vacation fits cleanly inside your financial life, fine. If it has to be financed with future stress, then it is not leisure. It is deferred pain sold as memory making. I would rather see a person take smaller trips, closer trips, simpler trips, and preserve their balance sheet than spend years paying interest on a week they already lived. People underestimate how much freedom they sacrifice for the privilege of saying they went somewhere. Then there is the modern drip system of stupidity subscriptions. This one is especially dangerous because it is designed to feel too small to matter. $10 here, $15 there, another one for the kids. Another one for sports. Another one because there is one show you might want to watch eventually. Streaming services, premium upgrades, software subscriptions, random memberships, and all of it quietly stacks until a person is paying hundreds or thousands a year for access. They barely use cable is even worse because some people are still paying giant monthly bills for hundreds of channels. They never watch out of nothing but inertia. And gym memberships live in the same neighborhood. People sign up with high hopes, go for 2 weeks, stop going, and keep paying because canceling would force them to confront the truth. So they donate $50 or $60 a month to a building they never enter. Not because it helps them, because denial feels easier than action. That is not a fitness strategy. That is a tax on self-deception. Now let us talk about electronics, because this is one of the most socially celebrated forms of waste. Every year there is a new phone. Every year there is a new laptop. Every year there is some improved version of a thing people already own. And a huge number of people behave as if keeping last year's perfectly functional device is a moral failure. That is exactly what the manufacturers want. If your old phone still works, still texts, still calls, still handles your maps, your email, your photos, and your scrolling, then the burden of proof is on the new phone, not on you. But the marketing machine reverses that burden. It makes people feel outdated for the crime of being rational. So they drop $1,000 or more on a replacement that improves very little about their actual life. Then they do it again in a year or two, and they call it staying current. No, they are just paying a premium to be manipulated on schedule. And planned obsolescence makes the whole thing worse because a lot of modern electronics are intentionally built to age badly, pushing people back into the buying cycle faster than they should have to return. If you keep your phone or laptop for 4 or 5 years, instead of treating it like seasonal fashion, the savings are not trivial. Over time, they become investment capital, and investment capital is what eventually buys you actual freedom. The newest phone does not do that. Next comes the house full of overpriced nonsense. Branded cleaning products, premium kitchen gadgets, luxury cookware for people who barely cook, specialized machines for food they make twice a year. Knife sets where 2 knives do all the work and 10 exist to justify the price. Furniture financed like a house. That one really offends me. If you are financing a couch, you should pause and think very hard about what game you are in. A couch is not an appreciating asset. It is not a business. it is not an investment in productive capacity. It is a place to sit. There are decent used couches. There are clearance couches. There are practical couches. But people want the one that photographs well, the one that matches the image in their head of the life they believe they should already be living. So they borrow money to furnish a fantasy. And then they wonder why there is never any surplus. Household spending becomes especially destructive when people stop asking the only question that matters. Not, is this nice? Not, would this look good? Not, do other people buy this? But what is the return on this use of cash relative to my actual goals? For most people, that is the question they never ask. That is why money leaves so easily. And then there is the broadest category of all status spending: watches, designer bags, luxury trims, prestige purchases. Anything bought mainly so other people will assign you a higher rank. This is one of the saddest uses of money because the people doing it are often trying hardest to signal success precisely because they do not feel secure. Actually, wealthy people often do not need this theater. They are not trying to convince anybody in the checkout line that they made it. They are too busy protecting capital, compounding capital, and deploying capital. The people most addicted to looking rich are often the farthest from becoming it. That is why so much status spending is done with debt. The bag is not bought from surplus. The watch is not bought from cash flow. The car is not bought from investment income. It is bought from future labor, from future stress, from future compromises, from years of payments for the right to display a symbol that does not actually fix the insecurity underneath it. That is the tragedy. People are not just losing money. They are trying to solve emotional problems with depreciating objects. That is a game no one wins. So where does all of this leave us? It leaves us in a world where a great many ordinary purchases are no longer worth what they cost, and most people have not adjusted their behavior to match that reality. Fast food lost the value. Restaurants lost the value unless used deliberately. New cars usually destroy value. Logo-driven clothing destroys value. Debt. Funded vacations destroy value. Unused subscriptions destroy value. Constant electronics upgrades destroy value. Overpriced household goods destroy value. Financed furniture destroys value. Status spending destroys value while pretending to create it. And the real danger is not any one of those in isolation. It is the cumulative effect of all of them combined. That is how a person with a decent income still feels stuck. That is how someone earning respectable money remains financially anxious. That is how people who should be investing, saving, or buying freedom instead spend their best years funding appearances. The solution is not exotic. It is not complicated. It is not hidden behind a paywall. It is mostly restraint. Cook more. Keep the car longer. Buy used when it makes sense. Keep the phone until it truly needs replacement. Cancel what you do not use. Buy generic when the premium is branding rather than quality. Stop financing furniture. Stop paying luxury prices for ordinary experiences. Stop buying things because you want to feel like the kind of person who owns them. Be the kind of person first. Then buy what still matters after the math is done. I am not telling you to live like a monk. I am telling you to separate joy from waste. Buy what genuinely improves your life. Buy what you truly value. Buy what lasts. Buy what you can comfortably afford without sabotaging the future. But stop confusing visibility with value. A lot of modern spending is exactly that confusion. And once you fix it, everything changes. You stop trying to look financially secure and start becoming financially secure. You stop impressing strangers and start building options. You stop bleeding a little every week and start compounding a little every month. That is the whole game. You can look wealthy or you can build wealth. For most people, for most of life, choosing one means delaying the other. And if you ever want to get to a place where money stops controlling your decisions, then you have to get honest about which purchases still deserve a place in your life, and which ones are just expensive habits dressed up as normal behavior. Track your spending for 1 month. Look at it without flinching. I promise there is something in there you no longer need. Usually there are many things, and every one of those things is a chance to redirect money away from garbage and toward your future. That is not deprivation, that is maturity. and in a world where almost everything is overpriced and designed to seduce you, maturity is one of the highest returning financial assets you can own.